What's up, y'all? Toya here, and I am back with another video for y'all. Before we get into the video, make sure you guys either like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Alright, y'all, so today's economy, it seems like it is in shambles. It is extremely volatile. It's a lot going on right now. I ain't even gonna hold you up. Some people might believe that the market is thriving, but I think collectively, most people can say that things have started to get a little bit tight. There have been talks about a possible recession the last couple of years, with some people honestly believing that we're already in a recession or that we really never recovered fully from the pandemic. Now, whether or not we're in a recession would be determined by the GDP, which currently states that we are not. Now, is this accurate? That's debatable. Personally, I don't think that everybody's daily life can be fully captured and measured with an equation, but that's a different topic. Now, you might already be thinking, where are you going with this and what does this have to do with gig work? Well, let me explain. If we were to enter into a recession, obviously the economy declines. There's less spending, higher unemployment, a variety of things. But current times puts us in a pretty unique position because we have a variety of ways to bring in income. And of course, this does include gig work. Remember, just 5 years ago during the pandemic, that was our last official recession, and we ended up seeing a big boom for gig work. Of course, people didn't want to go out, so they opted for delivery services, and there was plenty of work for drivers, so it was a win-win for both sides. Obviously, today things are a lot different, and with the gig economy itself technically still being fairly new, we don't have too much to compare it to. But I do still think that we have an opportunity to learn from what happened 5 years ago and flip this into a positive. So today, I want to discuss whether a recession would actually be a blessing in disguise for the gig economy. Now, the first thing that comes to mind would be increased opportunities. And of course, I know you might be thinking, how can there be increased opportunities during a recession? Usually a recession means job loss. Well, hear me out. Now, this is dependent on the direction that the companies want to take. When you're talking about a recession, that usually does mean layoffs. Unfortunately, it is inevitable. Companies need to cut costs, and staffing is usually one of the first things on the chopping block. However, another alternative could potentially be on the rise. Companies could switch from W-2 employees to independent contractors. In the company's eyes, they're saving a ton of money by not having to pay benefits, vacation time, legal fees if there's any types of issues, supplies for the staff, all of that. So they can essentially cut the cost without sacrificing productivity if they play their cards right. So as a result, this will give gig workers more opportunities. We already have predictions that same day and next day delivery is just going to continue to get more popular. And companies, they're going to adapt so they can ensure that they can meet these demands. So while the economic slowdown can temporarily hinder the growth of the delivery market, it will most definitely rise to new heights. So if companies decide to stick with their independent contractors over employees, once things do settle down, this just means that there's going to be a plethora of work to go around. And keep in mind, this isn't going to be just for delivery gigs. You can find various gigs in IT, project management, graphic design, accounting, the list goes on. Now, of course, these are your typical corporate positions, but you do also have apps like Workwhile, InstaWork that could potentially pick up steam because, again, companies would much rather bring on people per shift instead of just hiring them on as W-2 employees so they can save themselves some money. Which, by the way, in case you have not seen the videos where I talked about some of these apps, I'll just go ahead and put them up on screen. But these are apps that allow you to pick up shifts for the warehouse, hospitality, housekeeping, cooking, catering. There's a ton of different types of jobs that you can get. So definitely check that out if you're looking for that type of work. But gigs like this, these are a win-win for both sides. The companies, they save their money and you get to work when you want to work, which leads me to my next point. Now, again, as we saw during the pandemic, gig work offered the flexibility and the independence needed to navigate the economic uncertainty. Those who unfortunately lost their jobs, they gravitated to gig work. And while people were waiting for their next job, they were able to go out out and make some money when they wanted to. And let's be honest, having the ability to set your own schedule is always going to be more attractive than the standard 9 to 5. Another plus could be that you can potentially hone in on your skills, especially adaptability. Being able to navigate the unpredictability of the gig economy effectively will be the key to being successful. But this actually might give you the opportunity to try different jobs that you might not have had the time to do so before. And those gigs that you do work could actually translate to valuable skill sets that can help you when you do decide to go back to traditional employment. Now, of course, all of these things sound good, but we do have to be realistic here. If there is another surge of gig workers, it's going to cause increased competition with more oversaturation. And of course, the demand for some services actually might go down. So there actually might be less work available. And of course, the main issue is the financial instability. One day you might get lucky and you're able to make $400, but the next day you're only able to get 50. There's no consistency. And all of these things that I mentioned, we're already seeing these today. So I can only imagine how bad it could potentially get if we were to go into a recession. Because in a recession, everything takes a hit. But if you play your cards right, you might be able to come out on top. Some people like to make investments to generate wealth once the market recovers. They like to buy the dip. So they buy stocks, real estate, and obviously I know not everybody has the funds to do these things. But as I mentioned earlier, you can actually take this time to hone in on your skills and invest in yourself. Maybe you rediscover your love for tech and you end up taking a few different IT gigs, which might eventually lead you to that developer position that you always wanted, but you just never had the time to go and do your studying and get the certifications and all of that, right? Maybe you finally get a chance to focus on the business you always wanted to start. So you go ahead and take different delivery gigs here and there to keep the bills paid while you go ahead and take that extra time to actually focus on your business. And then you can finally bring it to fruition. While a recession is obviously negative in the sense of economics, but in today's world, there is no woe is me, woe is I, woe is my mama and them. You can't do that. Unfortunately, we live in a world where there is such a lack of empathy. Instead of helping one another, people, they just want to beat each other down. They see somebody struggling, it's their fault. They shouldn't have did that. They shouldn't have did this. Not everybody has the resources. Not everybody has the education. But I will say that this is the perfect opportunity to take advantage of what is in front of you. Nobody's going to bail you out here. You just got to go and figure it out and try to get it on your own the best way that you know how. So just make the most of what you have in front of you and turn it into as much of a positive as you possibly can. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I got for this video. So this latest string of videos that I've been doing, I know a lot of it has to do with the economy. There has been a lot of uncertainty these last few months. Some people are on edge. Some people are getting spooked. And, sometimes we just have to try to find that light at the end of the tunnel. I know it might be hard to see, but what's going to happen is going to happen. So you just have to go ahead and, like I said, just find the best way to make the most of what you have. Even for myself, I'm like, okay, if this price goes up, then I got to do this. I got to do that. Okay, hopefully I got enough money in my savings. I think about all these too. Don't get me wrong. I'm just like any other person, right? So, if in the event that we do head into a recession, these are some things to keep in mind. But yeah, just trying to see it a bit more positively in a sense of there could be potentially more opportunities for you. But this doesn't have to translate to just the gig economy. Obviously, the most people that are watching, you are gig workers, whether you do it full-time, part-time, every now and then, just to go ahead and have some little extra money or whatever. And there might be some people that's stopping by that, you just got into gig work temporarily for, whatever reason, you're just passing by. But this can be applied to a lot of other things. So, maybe you can start a YouTube channel. Get on social media. Like I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of ways that you can bring in income. You just have to go ahead and do your research and try to figure out what's the best fit for you in the event that, a recession does hit. Because the traditional job is probably not going to cut it. So like I said, the gig economy, social media, you can do a pop-up shop online, you know, different things like that. Figure out something that you want to sell out of your house. You know, maybe you had a thing for knitting sweaters or socks or whatever. I don't know, making art, or, you know, just different things. There's a lot of different possibilities out there. So just make the best of what you have and go from there. You know, we try to go ahead and keep a positive outlook on this channel. And that's it. Yeah, so, but I would definitely love to know what you guys thought about this video. Do you think that a recession could potentially bring more opportunities for gig workers in the future? Let me know in the comments. Now, before I go, I have to remind you guys to leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss a video. But I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna catch you guys on the next one. And as always, stay safe out there and keep grinding.